Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mo Money, Mo Problems Budget Deck Techs with your boy Brian. Anyways, this is a series where I talk about deck techs, deck lists that I've made under $50 by calculation of tapped out through TCG. This is my mono blue deck list that I came up with, and this is actually something that's really kind of close to what you would want to build. You know, there are a few rather expensive cards that you would put in here to make the deck better, but again, this is a jumping off point and a starting point to kind of get you into the format. It's definitely competitive, I would say, tier 2 at least, but these decks in this series are unpolished, untested, and they're just jumping off points, places to start, sort of a, like more of an easy access doorway into the format. So let's jump into this. This is an Affinity Deck, and if you don't know what that means it's a affinity for artifacts. Although actually there really isn't very much true affinity in here except for Thoughtcast. But we'll get to that. It just basically it's an artifact. It's a mono blue artifact deck. This is actually a really fun build. Personally speaking, I really like affinity and artifacts, but we'll start with the creatures. So Chief Engineer, a fairly new card, came out in M15, and it's just a 1/3 for 2 that says that artifact spells have Convoke, and these are the spells in your hand, of course. And Convoke says that you can tap creatures to add a colorless or a color of that creature's color to your mana pool for that specific card. So all artifacts in your hand have Convoke, which is a mechanic brought back from earlier times, and it was brought back in M15. There's only 2 of these guys because Convoke is not a big part of their deck, but it is definitely helpful. So Ethereum Sculptor. This says artifact spells you cast, cost 1 colorless less to cast. Another Vidalcan Artificer. This first guy was a Vidalcan Artificer. They're kind of the blue artifacts guys. But this is a really important card because there are a couple more higher cost artifacts in the deck. None of that are too expensive, and you could definitely replace them with more expensive artifacts like Wormcoil Engine or like Blight Steel Colossus. The list goes on. Just you'd search up high converted mana cost artifacts, and they're out there. Like Platinum Angel is another good one. Anyways. But this is to cast your high cost artifacts. That's what this guy's for. Grand Architect. This guy's also to help cast high cost artifacts. He's a 3-drop 1/3. 3-drops kind of iffy, and he says other blue creatures you control get +1/+1. The only thing with this is that the only other blue creatures that you have in this deck are these 2 guys. But his second ability says that he can make artifacts become blue until end of turn. So he kind of has a pseudo pump on him. But his third ability, crazy, I know, 3 abilities. Who could keep up with that? Is that you tap an untapped blue creature you control and you add 2 colors to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate artifact abilities. So he comes into play for 3, and since his ability is not a tap ability or doesn't have the tap symbol on it, that means that he can tap himself using this ability as though he had haste. It's a cost of the ability instead of I don't know the exact terminology for it. If you know a judge, they can probably tell you. But basically, what this is that you can play him and then tap him immediately for 2, as long as you're spending this mana for artifact spells or activated abilities of artifacts. But he can also tap the Ethereum Sculptor and the Chief Engineer. So Memite, a 1/1 for 0. That's it. But getting out more artifacts is really, really important for the rest of the deck, because the rest of the deck involves having a certain number of artifacts out. Mirror Battlesphere. This guy is one of your high drop artifacts. 7 colorless, I know, right? But when he comes into play, you get 4 1/1 mirror tokens, and then every time he attacks, you can tap these mirror tokens to give him plus X plus O, and then also deal X damage to the defending player. It's kind of really bizarre, and 7 is the highest cost in this deck, but if you do play him, he is definitely a game changer. Not only do you get 4 creatures along with himself, but those creatures pump up the Battlesphere and then also do damage. Next, we have Ornithopter, everybody's favorite 0-drop artifact creature. And this one has flying, and that's important. That'll come up later. Scuttling Doom Engine, one of my favorite high drop artifacts. For a while in Standard, I played blue-red artifacts before Origins, before it got popular. I'm a little bit of a blue-red artifacts hipster. If you, I'm not going to continue with that. But Scuttling Doom Engine, great. One of my favorite high drop artifacts. Like I said before, just a lot of really great things about this guy. Your opponent doesn't want to kill him because it deals damage to the opponent when it dies, but it also has a some amount of evasion as well. And then off of Grand Architect and Ethereum Sculptor and Chief Engineer, you can play him earlier than you normally should have, So getting this guy out early is really intimidating. Signal Pest. This guy's a 1-drop. You can play him turn 1 along with an Ornithopter or a Memite, and then turn 2 when he attacks, the battle cry says that it gives your other creatures that are also attacking +1 +0. So your Ornithopters that you thought were just 0/2s for 0 are now 1/2s for 0. Pretty good, eh? I would say so myself. Vault Scourge. This is what's going to keep you alive. The fact that this guy has lifelink is amazing. He's a 1/1 flying lifelink for 1. I mean, yes, you do have to pay 2 life, but he very, very, very easily earns that 2 life back. I mean, oh man, this is one of the most annoying things to play against, because you don't often have flying creatures or creatures with reach, and you don't want to devote an entire Path to Exile or some sort of big removal to this 1/1. But the damage that he does, the difference that it makes, is it piles up over time. It gets bad quicker than the opponent realizes it, especially with creatures like Signal Pest that buff them up. Let's go over to the instance over here. Monolink and Stoic Rebuttal are both counter spells. Monolink is a counter spell that they can pay 3 more to uncounter the counter. Stoic Rebuttal is cool because it has Metalcraft, which says that if you control 3 or more artifacts, the cost of the spell costs 1 colorless less, meaning it is a 2-drop counter spell, and it's just counter spell, any spell. This is amazing. Think about cards like Remand, which is a 2-drop counter spell that that gives them back the spell, you know, or even Monolink is a 2-drop counter spell, but it has a huge drawback like this. And you, playing this deck, are probably gonna have Metalcraft. You have so many artifacts here. Even Ethereum Sculptor is an artifact creature, which counts towards this, you know, and so the counter spells are in here because you're playing blue. That is your form of removal. You stop them before they start doing anything, you know, fishy. It's really, really important against combo decks, or even if you're just playing for attrition. You know, even if you're just playing for tempo, counter spells are key to keep your tempo. In our lands, we have 4 of the artifact lands. This will help with Metalcraft, as well as we'll talk about Insult Artifact in a second. And then just some islands. Of course, this is a mono blue deck, so we don't have a bunch of expensive lands. Bident of Thassa. There's just a 1-of in here. It's not a great card. It is an artifact, though, and it does give you draw. Draw cards, very, very important in Affinity, because Affinity is the type of deck that kind of just barfs its hand on the field, on the battlefield, and just, you know, lets that go. So you barf your hand, and you want to get a new hand that you can then barf again. And Bident of Thassa really allows that. If you like this card, put more in. The only reason I only have 1 in there is because I want the draw, but the 4-drop is kind of iffy. The Ethereum Sculptor helps with that as well, and the Grand Architect helps with that as well. Chief Engineer as well. So, you know, hopefully you won't be playing this for 4 mana. And the secondary effect can have some sort of gameplay as well. You know, you can, if you know you can survive an attack, a full-out attack from the opponent, you can make them all attack and then swing in for lethal. If you know you have lethal, as long as they don't block, you know, as long as they don't block, then you can win. Then that's this can help out with that. Cranial Plating. This is one of the cards that I would say, I mean, so we're only at 44. If you really wanted to bump this up to $50, this is the first card that I would say to add more of. This is one of the key players in high ranking Affinity decks, because you get a bunch of artifacts out, and the fact that you can switch the who this is equipped to via the second ability there, at instant speed, because, you know, equipping is normally at sorcery speed, but this has the ability to equip at instant speed. You'd have to invest in some lands that would allow you to tap for black, but this is a super powerful card. Super, super, super powerful. If they let one of your artifacts go through, you just instant speed equip this guy to them, and oh man, it's over. It's over. So yeah, super strong card. This would be the first thing that I would look for if you were looking to upgrade the deck a little bit. Thoughtcast. This is honestly one of my favorite Affinity designs out of all the Affinity cards. So what this is designed to be is, if you have enough artifacts on the field, this is a 1-drop, draw 2 cards. Great. Fantastic. Such good card advantage. And this is a great way to refill your hand, because Infinity has a little bit of problem with refilling their hand. Most of the time you're going to have 4 artifacts out, whether it be lands or, you know, just free artifacts that you can get out, you know, for free. I guess that's what free means. And this just allows you to refill your hand, and it's just, I don't know, it's great. Card draw is great. If you've never played with card draw, I highly recommend it. Try it out. You know, if you've never played against card draw, you probably have played against a deck that has card draw in it and found it very, very annoying to deal with. And I encourage you to play with it so that you understand what kind of power that it gives. It's very fun to play with, having card advantage. And then finally, my favorite card in the deck, maybe, well, it's hard to say, between Scuttling Doomage and in this card. Honestly, probably this card is my favorite. Ensoul Artifact. I mean, if you were around in Standard during M15's release, you know about this card. This card is double thumbs up. I love this card. What it's mimics Tezzeret. Also has a Midas ability that does the same thing, but it is a 2-dropped enchantment that makes any artifact, any at all, doesn't have to be an artifact creature, into a 5/5 creature in addition to everything else. So, ideally, turn 1, you play an Ornithopter and a Signal Pest with your island, and then turn 2, you play another island or a Darksteel Citadel, and you Ensoul Artifact on your Ornithopter, and you attack in with your Signal Pest and your Ornithopter, and you swing for 6 damage. 6 damage in the air on turn 2. That is some powerhouse stuff right there. You also have the option of ensouling your Darksteel Citadel, which is then an indestructible 5/5. Fantastic defense, immaculate offense. Very, 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 very strong. You can ensoul your Vault Scourge, then you have a 5/5 lifelink flyer. That's incredibly strong. Turn 1 you play your Vault Scourge, take 2 life, whatever. Turn 2 you ensoul it, gain 5 life. You net 3, you're at 23 on turn 2, and they're at 15. Who could ask for more? This deck, I think, is probably one of my favorites out of the 5 color pie budget decks that I've done. Just because I don't know, I like artifacts. I really do like artifacts. So yeah, tell me what you think about the deck in the comments below. Any cards that I missed, and if you decide to make a version of this deck, please link me the deck list, the tapped out link in the comments, or if you use TCG to upload your deck list, that's awesome as well. But if you have any suggestions or any decks that you want to see in a matchup between me and Colin, make sure that you drop a comment as well. But besides that, subscribe and like, share with your friends. I'd love to see more people in the Modern scene. Modern's a great format. It's one of my favorites. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.